voting districts drawn in Pennsylvania, and why does it matter for you? I'm Jill Horner. This is Comcast Newsmakers. With me is Ardith Talbot. She's with the Bucks County Women's Advocacy Coalition. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jill.
Let's talk a little bit about this as a process as it stands right now in the Commonwealth. You're calling for a change in the process as to how districts are drawn both at a congressional level and a state legislative level, but how does the process work now?
Well, it's all about redistricting. And currently, legislators, the legislative leaders in Harrisburg, redraw voting districts, manipulating the boundaries of those voting districts in such a way that it leads to the election of a certain party or certain legislators.
But you as an organization are calling for changes to that process. You want citizens involved in the process. Why so? Why does that matter?
Well, right now in the gerrymandered districts, if a legislator is in a gerrymandered district and he can count on being reelected, then he doesn't have to pay attention to the interests of the voters. So a lot of really important issues that are important to the Bucks County Women's Advocacy Coalition and to millions of voters, fall on deaf ears. Because if a legislator feels that they are having an election advantage, then they learn that they need to pay more attention to what their party leaders support than necessarily what the voters support.
And in addition to having a citizens commission, you want an impartial citizens commission, you want transparency in this process as to how districts are drawn. Are you saying there's not transparency in the process today?
Well, that's right. There isn't transparency. Today, there are hearings around the state when they're getting ready to redraw districts to get some citizen input, but all of that happens before the maps are actually drawn. And once the maps are drawn, there is no transparency. There is no opportunity for citizens to have input. So our proposed process would have citizen input after the maps are drawn, citizen input across the state in various locations.
In addition to that, you don't want the use of data that will predict how people will vote to be a part of the process. Why so?
Well, currently the very first step of redistricting is the party leaders look at voter registration data and other data that predicts how people will vote. And they use that data along with sophisticated computer mapping programs to select the voters that will be in their district to get them reelected. So that voter data is essential to the gerrymandering process. If we take that out of the equation and they can't predict how people will vote, then they will draw fairer boundaries.
Now, was this problem not solved, though, by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court in February of 2018 when they redrew the congressional districts here in the Commonwealth?
Well, it certainly was addressed, at least temporarily. The Supreme Court ruled that the congressional districts needed to be redrawn. They did not address the state legislative districts, and those are just as gerrymandered as the congressional districts. But more importantly, in the future, when redistricting happens again, they'll go back to the same process with all the faults of gerrymandering that they've had before.
And as you mentioned, it will happen again. This does happen each time there is a census, which happens every decade.
That's right.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jill.
We've been talking with Ardith Talbot. I'm Jill Horner for Comcast Newsmakers.